Hey, good morning. I hope everyone's doing okay. We're going to take a look at some of the homework assignment, and we're going to do a little bit of review. So hopefully we'll have it done in about 25 minutes or so. Then, of course, no homework over the weekend, Thanksgiving weekend, and I encourage you to take some time to reflect and what you're thankful for. I think when you're gracious and you have gratitude in your life, it helps to handle some of the adversity that you might have in your own life. And so when you're busy giving thanks for the things that you do have, you don't really miss the things that you don't. So, all right, let's get going, and we'll take a look. Get your homework out. We're going to take a look at two proofs, number 7 and number 9, and then we're going to do two other problems, 12 and 13. All right, so that should give you a good idea on how to do these. All right, let's review proofs real quick. Number 7 says that we have two techniques. We're going to look at what the given says, and what does that mean? That's technique number 1. Why did they give me the given information? What am I going to do with it? What can I conclude? And then the second technique is you look at what you're trying to prove, and you try and work your way backwards. Okay, well, if we look at what we're trying to prove, we're trying to prove triangles congruent. We've got 5 ways to do it. We have ASA, we have SAS, SSS, AAS, but the most important is the one that we're most recently doing. So more than likely, this proof is going to focus on the HL. We don't just have some random problems that you could use any of them. Now that may come in a quiz, where you're not sure which one we need to use, but we know that it could be any of these 5, but more than likely, it's going to be that. In order to use the HL, that just means it has to be a right triangle. H represents hypotenuse and L represents a leg. So that work on our way backwards. If I want to prove that these two triangles are congruent, I need to show that the hypotenuses, that's plural, and the legs of two right triangles are congruent. And that would be of this triangle right here and this triangle right here. So I want to prove they're congruent. Well, let's look at the given information. Of course, it's always step 1. Angle FGH and JHK are right angles. All right, well, that takes care of the idea that we can use right triangles. We know that. So step 1, we're going to write all the given. Angle FGH. Let me flip this in just a little bit. Angle FGH and angle JHK are right angles. And then H is the midpoint. That seems pretty important. If we take technique number 1, if H is the midpoint, what can we conclude of GK? Let's go ahead and make the marking up here. If H is the midpoint right here, if this is the midpoint, that means that GH and HK have to be congruent because H is the midpoint. And then continue on, we already know that FH is congruent to JK. What is that? FH and JK. FH and JK, those are the hypotenuse. That's the H. All right, so all that big 3 steps is given info. All right, well, right angle just means there's nothing really we need to do with that. That just tells us that these are right triangles. H is the midpoint. Well, I did make those markings, but we got to put it in a proof. What's that mean that we got to say that GH is congruent to HK. And as I've hopefully instructed you consistently, anytime you can look right over here and it can tell you, and it uses the word midpoint, we're going to go definition of midpoint. Here, drink of my coffee. Hope you guys are hydrating yourselves. Okay, so now what does this give us? That gives us LEL. Well, look at that. We have the picture, we have an H and an H, an L and an L. Is that enough to prove the triangle's congruent? It is. Wow, this is only a 3-step proof. So we can now say that triangle FGH is congruent to triangle JHK by the HL theorem. And we're done. Finished. Okay, let's move on to number 9. By the way, if you have any questions, don't be afraid to email me. I may ask you questions back, but don't be afraid to email me any questions. You can also put them in the text entry box in the Canvas. I look at those as well. Okay, so let's go with blue here. All right, so now we've got triangle or angle ADC and are right angles. Okay, so we know that this is 90 degrees, and we know that this is 90 degrees. Put the given there. Angle ADC and angle BDC are right angles. That's given. What else is given? And AC is congruent to BC. And those are with the hypotenuse of each triangle. Okay, so that means we already know the H. But what about the leg? Do we know if the leg are congruent? Remember, we're here now. We're not proving the triangles are congruent, but we are proving a part of the triangles are congruent. So we're going to say that the triangles are congruent, and then we're going to do that powerful CPCTC step. Okay, so step 2, looks to me like we have to say that DC is congruent to itself. And that would be reflexive property. Okay. And so now we've got an H and an H, an L and an L. We're going to go ahead and put the L here and an H here. And then 3, it says triangle ADC is congruent to triangle BDC, and that is by the HL theorem. Okay, so this triangle and this triangle, and then step 4, we say AD is congruent to BC because of corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Questions? Okay. I'm going to drink. Hope you guys are good. Relax. Let's go to number 12 and number 13 in the book. All right, so let's get back to a pencil or maybe a pen here. All right, so number 12, it says what value of x make the triangles congruent? So again, we're using the HL theorem, and these happen to be the legs. The hypotenuse is already congruent to itself, so we already got that taken care of. And so in order to use the HL theorem, we got to set these equal to each other. So we should be able to generate an equation which says this. Okay. Everyone see how I got this? This is a key step because the legs would have to be congruent in order to show that these two triangles are congruent. Now we're going to solve for x. I got 2x then is equal to, is that 9? So then x is equal to 4.5. Okay. All right, no questions there. Good. Not like I'm talking to anybody. I'm just saying, pausing and letting it process with you. Same idea here. Here the legs are congruent, so now we got to set the hypotenuse equal to each other. 7x minus 5 is equal to 4x plus 25. And so we have 3x then is equal to 30, and x is equal to 10. Those are the solutions for 12 and 13. Hope you're doing great. If you have questions or any issues, please contact me. Now, let's with the homework. Now, let's just quickly review. So I already went through the 5 ways. And so basically in this whole section, all we're doing are proving triangles congruent. And the whole idea or key is you have to know the parts of a triangle. And so if I have I'm just listing the ways here at the top. If I have these things, I have to know what this means. This means 2 angles in the included side. It means the side between them. This means 2 sides in the included angle. This means just the 3 sides. Doesn't matter about the angles. This means 2 angles in the non-included side. And this only works with right triangles. And so we're going to have on Monday when we come back, we're going to have a review. I'm going to give you a couple random proofs or triangles, and we'd say okay, and talk through it and say what method would you use to prove these triangles? And it's all based on what you're given and what you can show. Now remember, there's really only a few ways that do not work. The dreaded, we've already talked about that. There's no donkeys in geometry class. Remember, it doesn't matter how we spell it. It could be like that. And then it could also, we've shown that doesn't work because of the AAA. Okay? So, really, we've got 5 ways that work and only two really, those 2 are basically the same. 2 that don't work. Improving triangles congruent. All right, so that's a little bit of our review. I hope you guys have a great weekend. I'm going to post the video, and I'm going to give you a little bit of an assignment, and it has to deal with Thanksgiving, so I don't want you to think that it's anything crazy, but there is going to be some points for it. So I want you to, you'll see. You're going to see the instructions in the text entry. So happy Thanksgiving break. All right, see you guys.